Possibly the biggest news in agriculture has just been released. It's the biggest news maybe in my lifetime, definitely since I have been on my horticultural journey for the past 12 years. And it is the fact that a very special man named Joel Salatin has been asked to be an advisor to the USDA. We're going to talk about who this special guy is, why it's so important, and why this is revolutionary for our country's agriculture. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more health and homesteading content. So let's get into it. I learned about Joel Salatin when we moved up to the country. I had already had an urban homestead with less than a quarter of an acre with a little 900 square foot house on it and used up all the space I could to grow vegetables and have chickens and compost and fruit trees, and it was awesome. It wasn't until I moved out to the country on 5 acres in the mountains that I really understood the value that Joel Salatin brings. And so we're going to dive in. I'm going to show you a picture of what he looks like. I'm going to show you some of his books that I have and why I think they're great. And then we're going to talk about what recently has transpired with his now accepted advisor position to the USDA. This is Joel Salatin, and he is probably one of the most famous farmers globally for a reason. And if you go to his website, which is thelunaticfarmer.com, you will find an about section. And let's read a little bit about how he describes himself. He's 64 years old, calls himself a Christian, libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer. You've got to enjoy a guy that has got that sort of fun in a description about him. Some call him the most famous farmer in the world, the high priest of pasture, the most eclectic thinker from Virginia since Thomas Jefferson. Those who don't like him call him a bioterrorist, Typhoid Mary, charlatan, and starvation advocate. With a room full of debate, trophies from high school and college days, 15 published books, which I'll share a couple of them with you here soon, and a thriving multi-generational family farm, he draws on a lifetime of food, farming, and fantasy to entertain and inspire audiences around the world. He's as comfortable moving cows in a pasture as addressing CEOs in a Wall Street business conference. His wide range topics include nitty-gritty how-to for profitable regenerative farming, as well as cultural philosophy like orthodoxy and heresy. A wordsmith and master communicator, he moves audiences from laughs one minute to tears the next, from frustration to hopefulness, often receiving standing ovations. He prefers the word performance rather than presentation to describe his lectures. His favorite activity, Q&A. I love the interaction, he says. He co-owns with his family Polyface Farm in Swope, Virginia. Featured in the New York Times bestseller Omnivore's Dilemma and award-winning documentary Food Inc., the farm services more than 5,000 families, 50 restaurants, 10 retail outlets, and a farmer's market with a salad bar, beef, pigerator pork, pastured poultry, and forestry products. When he's not on the road speaking, he's at home on the farm, keeping the calluses on his hands, dirt under his fingernails, mentoring young people, inspiring visitors, and promoting local regenerative food and farming systems. You can read a little bit more about his biography on his page, which I will link below. And before we get into this big news of him becoming an advisor to the USDA, I want to share a little personal experience of how I learned about him, what I learned from his teachings, and what I see from his books. So when we moved out to this land, we knew that we wanted to get into livestock, which at our urban homestead, we were a little bit more limited on with space. We had a great vegetable garden, tons of fruit trees, and we had chickens, but on this new property, we had 5 acres to work with. And so we were very interested in learning how we could optimize the sufficiency of this land. And that's what brought me to Joel Salatin. The first book that I read was Polyface Micro. And this book is so easy and fun and beautiful to read because it breaks down the first and foremost importance of regenerative agriculture and how you can do this on a really small scale. And it can work from being on a small scale to large scale farming, optimizing the health of animals and optimizing the health of our lands. There's a big notion out there that farming is terrible for the environment. And the reason for that is because the way that big agriculture often does farming is actually quite terrible. The animals never see the light of day. They are stuck in pens at milking stations, eating terrible grains, and they're not living to their fullest potential. And that is a horrible part of that industry. But there is this resurgence in understanding what regenerative agriculture actually looks like. And it's going a lot back to our roots of working with livestock in order to work the land. So, for example, a major component in regenerative agriculture is rotating your livestock. So they are the ones keeping the lands from overgrowth, but also sequestering carbon by eating the grass, pooping it out, fertilizing the land. They're fertilizing the land with compost, basically. And compost is one of the most environmentally friendly and nourishing things that you can think of. Even when I was in New Orleans and heard a lot about the issues that we were facing with coastal erosion, compost often came up as a major source for rehabilitating the coast. And with the combination of compost and native plantings and not taking away from the environment, like harvesting peat, as an example, which is commonly found in a lot of soil products, you can prevent and restore coastal erosion. That's just one example of the power of compost. But compost also brings up so much bioavailability of species and biodiversity to the land. It's just one of the best things that you can do. Compost gives you healthier land, healthier grass, and then the animals rotate back into the cycle and go back into eating some more of it. And the real beauty about rotational grazing is it doesn't just have to be limited to one animal. It can be multi-species. And the more species you involve, the healthier the habitat becomes. For example, goats are browsers. If you are in a heavily forested area or you have brush that is 4 or 5 feet tall, goats are perfect animals for bringing all of that down. And as soon as they finish that, you can have grazers like cows or sheep to get that understory of grass and things that are closer to 6 to 2 inches to 2 feet tall. And then after them, you can bring in chickens, rabbits, and you've got an even healthier way of restoring the most fertile lands. And there is so much land to be had, at least in the United States, to be utilized so that you are bringing the food economy in locally, giving animals a healthier life, and taking care of the lands. It's the most beautiful form of farming that you could ask for. So in Polyface Micro, it gives you that breakdown to make sense of all that. But it also talks about converting woods to pasture, developing pasture, fencing options, grazing, hens, pigs, dealing with sickness, feeding, goats, sheep, milk cows, rabbits, and even urban possibilities. And then this book here, Polyface Designs, this is a heavy one. But this one here is a great segue if you're ready to take action after reading this book. It's going to give you the actual blueprints for building all of these structures. So all of these structures you can do on a budget. These are not expensive materials here that would allow you to rotate your animals in the perfect fashion. So this guy clearly knows what he's talking about, and he is a role model for all of us homesteading, farming, looking for a more sustainable way to do things. And now we've got the big, great news of him being an advisor to the USDA, which could completely change the political climate, but also the actual climate of the United States of America. So whether you're happy about the 2024 election results or not, if you are interested in environmentalism and sustainability, this is one thing to be really excited about. Let's take a look. So this is on his website, The Lunatic Farmer, under blog, and he posted a celebration. So the day after the election results came out, and we found out that Trump and Vance won the election and is our 47th president and vice president, we found out this news. And this is from Joel Salatin directly. I've been contacted by the Trump transition team to hold some sort of position within the USDA and have accepted one of the 6 advisor to the secretary spots. My favorite congressman, Thomas Massie from Kentucky, has agreed to go in as Secretary of Agriculture. He has been the sponsor of the Prime Act, which, if pushed through, would be the biggest shot across the bow of the entrenched industrial meat processing system we've seen in a century. Let liberty ring, y'all. Wouldn't that be a change of fortune for big ag? He goes into some of the other changes that are happening with this next administration and wants to know your thoughts, and the comment section is hot. I highly recommend you go in and read the whole thing and just take a look at some of what is being proposed here. This is huge. It really goes beyond the left and right politics, and it appears that this administration is diving deep into core issues that the American people have woken up to and have decided is really important, like regenerative agriculture. I would love to know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel for more interesting content on health and homesteading.